When you're comfortable making selections, you may want to take things a step further by viewing and fine-tuning a selection in the special Select and Mask workspace. Give it a try with this image from the tutorial practice files. Start by making an initial selection of this jacket. You can do that here in Photoshop's main interface or in the Select and Mask workspace that we'll visit in a minute. We're going to do it here in the main interface using the Quick Selection tool, which you already learned how to do in an earlier video in this tutorial. So click on the Quick Selection tool and then move into the image and click and drag over the jacket on this side and then on this side too. And if your tool selects the area in the middle, hold down the Option key, that's the Alt key on Windows, and click and drag there to remove that area from the selection. I'll release my finger from the mouse, and the tool automatically switches back to Add to Selection mode, and I'll come up to the shoulder and click and drag over this extra bit that I'd missed to add that into the selection too. Now go to the Options bar and click Select and Mask, or go up to the Select menu, and you can choose Select and Mask from here no matter which selection tool you have selected. That opens a separate workspace, the Select and Mask workspace. Start here by going to the right side of the workspace and clicking the View menu icon to open this menu of different ways to view the current selection. Depending on the image you're using, you'll find that different views give you the most accurate information about what could be improved in your initial selection. For example, let's click on this Overlay view. This view is showing us everything that's outside the selection with a transparent red overlay, so we can more clearly see that the initial selection isn't exactly true to the edge of the jacket. There are parts of the jacket that have been left out of the selection. And there's a little bit of the background that's included in the selection that shouldn't be, like this area here on the bottom right. To try to fix that, we'll use one of the tools over here in the Abbreviated Tools panel. Here you'll find some of the same tools as in the main Photoshop interface, and they work the same way here too. For example, there's a Quick Selection tool, a Lasso tool, a Hand tool for panning, and a Zoom tool for zooming. Go ahead and select the third tool from the top. This is a brush tool that lets you simply paint to add to or subtract from the selection. Move into the image and simply paint over an area like this part right here that's covered in red, and as you see, that area becomes clear as I paint over it. I'll do the same up here and over here. Now if I want to remove something from the selection, like down here, I'll go up to the Options bar for this brush tool and click on the minus symbol, and then I'll come over here and I'll paint. Now as you're painting, you may want to use the Zoom tool to zoom in for a closer view. I'm just going to paint like this quickly. I'll go back up to the Options bar and I'll switch back to the Add to Selection, and I'll add in a little bit that I missed right over here. Of course, there are lots of other controls in the Select and Mask workspace, as you can see, and you can explore those as you become more familiar with Photoshop. But this introduction will get you started with basic Select and Mask features like the View menu and a couple of the tools over on the left. Now, before you close the Select and Mask workspace, you need to choose how you'd like to output your improved selection. So go over to the right side, and if you need to, click the scroll bar there and scroll down until you see a menu labeled Output Settings. Click the arrow on that menu. I'm going to scroll down again and choose from the Output To menu, and I'm going to choose to output with the first default option, Selection. And that will tell Photoshop to output the improved selection in the view you're used to, the Marching Ants view. Then click OK to close the Select and Mask workspace and go back to the main interface with the improved selection that appears as marching ants. As you know, anything you do to the image now will affect only the area inside the selection, the jacket. So let's do something we've done in earlier tutorials in this series, add a brightness contrast adjustment. I'll go up to the Image menu, Adjustments, Brightness Contrast, and in the Brightness Contrast dialog box, I'll drag this brightness slider over to the right, brightening the jacket, and then I'll click OK. Finally, I'll deselect by pressing Command+D on a Mac or Control+D on Windows. Or you can go to the Select menu and choose Deselect. And if you want a copy of this image with this adjustment without saving over the original, use the Save As command, as we've done throughout this tutorial series. So that's a brief introduction to how to view and fine-tune a selection using just some of the features in the Select and Mask workspace.